Joining us tonight to take a closer look at the latest news on climate change is Michael Novacek, the provost of science at the American Museum of Natural History here in New York and a regular on World Focus. Good to have you back.
Glad to be back.
We just saw and heard some very dire warnings about the carbon emissions on land and what they're doing underwater to the environment. What do we know about what's already happened to the coral reefs in the oceans?
Well, the coral reefs, first of all, have been under a lot of environmental stress for a long time. And many of them, just based on overfishing and pollution in the ocean, are very degraded, as much as 50% degraded for many of the major coral reefs. So then the double whammy comes with climate change caused by, of course, the emission of CO2 based on industrial emissions, mainly in the production of electricity. And CO2 is, of course, a greenhouse gas. It absorbs heat, and so it heats the surface temperature of the Earth. Those warming oceans are also putting stress on these coral reefs because this can do all kinds of things like bleaching and killing the reefs and their function.
There are still some who would say that there is a debate as to the exact cause of climate change around the world, but there is no debate over the fact that there are many governments that seem to be on board about cutting carbon emissions. How's the world doing on that front?
Well, first of all, the consensus in science on global warming currently, that we're experiencing unprecedented global warming for human history, is very strong. And the relationship of CO2 increases to global warming is clearly there from a scientific perspective. So nations seem to be finally responding to that message and trying to do something about it, either trying to control their emissions of carbon or look for alternative sources of energy and so forth. Unfortunately, the situation isn't so great right now. We're still not doing well enough. We're currently pushing about 382 parts per million. We haven't had levels this high for 800,000 years. And the notion is maybe we should get up to about 450 parts per million, or we really enter the danger zone.
But haven't we seen periods where we've had much warmer temperatures on the planet and much higher amounts of carbon in the atmosphere?
Well, it's true. We've had times in the past where there were high concentrations of CO2 and high temperatures, but those changes in climate took place more gradually, and the animals and plants that lived on continents and in oceans had time to adapt to those changes.
What does this mean then, of course, for the people who live in low-lying areas, delta regions, close to the ocean?
The people who live in these coastal regions could be the most affected by these climate changes, because one of the outcomes of climate change, of course, is the rise in sea level. And even more conservative predictions for a rise in sea level of, say, 1 meter or 1.5 meters could really affect 1/10 of the world's populations, human populations.
All right, we have to stop there for today. It won't be the last time we talk about it. Michael Novacek, thank you.
Good to be here.